All right. Hey, everybody. Oh, we got a little feedback. We have a new setup, which is I'm on an iMac now, which is cool. My gaming computer is over there because my teacher recommended that I switch to Logic. So I got a Mac, and I did. And learning Logic is really fun. So it's like switching video editors or switching DAWs. But anyways, today's class is all about something I call tone dialing, which is figuring out your tone. So I have in front of me on my desk, you can't see it because my Logitech webcam doesn't seem to want to cooperate today. Yeah, it's being funky. But if I can get that working, then I can show you guys what I have on my desk. And I have something, a unit I used before I had the fractal stuff, that's simply called the AX3000G, and it's a early, what's called a modeler. And a lot of people don't understand what a modeler is. And basically, a modeler is, instead of having an amp and having a cab and a bunch of pedals and everything, a modeler models those things. And modelers today are very sophisticated, where we can model any mic into any cab, into any head with like any setting, and it's really good. And this is an earlier version of that, and so you don't have as many options. And the reason I want to start with this unit is because I want to show you that you can still get great tones out of older gear, and gear that isn't like the most crazy, insane, top of the line thing. I want you to feel encouraged that if you don't have $3,000 of equipment, you can still do really great stuff. And there's plugins like Get Good Guitar and all that. But the thing for me that's always like mattered the most is like I work at a computer like all day doing my marketing job. And so when I get done with my marketing stuff, I want to get off the computer and I want to play guitar and I want to have pedals and stuff like that. And so boards like this are kind of the best opportunity for me to like get away from the computer a little bit, even though guitar production is pretty computer centric. So I'm gonna try to unplug and plug back in this webcam real quick, and then we're gonna get started with this. One sec. Welcome everybody. No, Logic, please don't use the webcam mic. We don't need that for anything ever in the history of humanity. Okay, properties. Yeah, still not working. There used to be a setting in OBS where it was like, reinitialize or whatever. Properties. Filters? Promise I won't spend very long doing this. Nope, it's not that. Okay, great. Well, I'll just unplug this for a second. Sorry if that was loud. So this is the unit that I used before I had the fractal stuff. This is the AX3000G, and what a lot of people do is they get something like this and they start going through the presets and they go, oh, well, it doesn't sound good. I need to go spend $3,000 or whatever to get X thing. If you read the manual, you can do really cool things with this. So I don't have perfect understanding of this unit, but I have pretty good understanding of this unit. And get it plugged back in here. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the manual, and I'm going to show you kind of how I think about some of this stuff. So we're going to switch here and go to Chrome. Okay, so if you look up the AX3000G manual, ta-da! First thing when we're looking at this board is, what does all this stuff do? Pre-effects is any effects that are going to go before, and sorry, I don't have my whiteboard plugged in today. It's any effects that are going to go before the amp and the cab, and you do have those options in here. And then we have the drive or the amp, so you can choose the amp on this, or you can choose a drive pedal. It's kind of like all in one here, and we'll walk through that. And then you have mod, which relates to modulation, so talk mod, filtron, random filter, rotary, text trim, all this stuff. And then delay, you've got echo plus, blah, blah, blah. What does all this mean, right? What does black 2x12 mean? What does AC15? I don't know what any of this is. And then we've got reverb, and then we've got a volume control. And we're not going to get into setting that up because you got to click a bunch of buttons. So all I'm going to do when I start looking and thinking about this kind of unit is I'm going to go to the table of contents, and I just want to kind of understand what all this stuff is. So explanations of effects and types. Then you read the manual. Crazy, right? Two-Body delivers an overdrive pedal housed in a garish seasick green box. So just like a little, it's a modeler of one of those little pedals. Boutique OD, named after a half-human, half-horse creature appearing. Okay, so it's, you know what it is? It's a Klon. It's supposed to be a Klon. And some of this stuff, like the names don't really mean anything. They don't really communicate anything. And you just have to go through and mess with it until you find something you like, okay? Fat distortion, a lot of time when you see this, it's a very like mid-heavy kind of thing. And it's always kind of I've never liked it. And then orange is probably going to be like, I don't know, I would think it's like those orange amps, right? Metal distortion is flipping through this. It's like a high drive kind of one with a lot of, there's no gate on this because especially this is like a pretty old unit. And so it's very noisy, frankly. But if you were looking for like, shred kind of stuff, like, or thrash, that's the word I was looking for, then that'll be good. Octafuzz, fuzz, and then we've got our amp models. So we have either drive pedals or amp models that we can choose here. And again, none of these names necessarily mean anything out of the box. What does UK modern really mean, right? Well, go read it. Models the high gain channel of a modern 100 watt amp. So what I'll do is like, let's say Rockstar is a really good song by Nickelback, frankly. It's a good song, and it's got fantastic mixing. So if I want to create a tone, all I'll do is I'll just search, I don't know what album that song is on, by Nickelback. Literally, I'll just go and I'll find whatever the album is. Fifth album. All the right reasons. Okay, great. So I'll say Rockstar, Nickelback, Rockstar, guitar tone. Okay? And then what's really cool is you will find forum posts, or you'll find interviews or whatever, and we'll just click on one of these, right? And a lot of times, somehow people know all this stuff. Come on, zoom. Okay, it's not going to zoom. So it says the engineer mic'd the guitarist's amps with SM57s, Mesa Boogie triple rectifier, 4x12 cabinet. What does 4x12 mean? It means 4 speakers, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then all those speakers are 12 inches. And then they also used a PV triple X amp with a PV cabinet, and then a Vox AC30 and a Fender Twin. So I believe when I read this a while back, they literally mic'd and played the guitars like 4 times. It's crazy. Okay, and we're going to get into doing that and A-Bing tones. It's a very important part of this. So phase alignment of 4 amps must have been fun. Yeah, exactly. And then he links to another article. So now what we can do is we go, okay, they used triple rectifier, they used 4x12, they use this, they use that. And then we can look through the list of, it doesn't matter if it's Boss or Chord or Fractal or Kemper or whatever. Of course, it might be easier because you have a gazillion options on some of the newer units, right? But then you just start matching up, okay, well, what sounds like what? And just because, like if we go here and like Fractal Wiki, okay? Fractal cabinet models list. And I start looking through all the Fractal cabinet models, and you start reading all of this stuff. It's just, come on. No, they don't have the middle click on Mac. Okay, great. So let's just, so if you click on these, and you start reading through, sometimes what'll happen is there's like different versions of an amp, or there are like different settings. And so sometimes the model, like you punch in a model and you're like, that doesn't sound like what I want at all. And it's because it's a different like set of settings that they put into the modeler, or it's a different channel or whatever. So that's the overview. That's how I think about this. Now, the last thing I want to cover before we start getting into actually twisting knobs and doing buttons and everything is what order should you kind of do this in. And the most important pieces to figure out are the amp and the cab. And so when I think about these pieces, these are a little bit rough in terms of my concept of them, but it works for me. And so when I think of the amp, I think of the amp as the core characteristics of the sound. Like, is there too much bass? Is there too much middle? Is there too much treble? Is there a lot of like high end, like, or is it good, right? Is it, you know, thin? Is it thick? How does it sound, right? And one of the things that I learned from John Petrucci's camp is he said you have to have like a image in your mind of what your tone wants to be. So my image for my tone is like, if you've ever heard tree fall over or like metal rip apart, which I have seen a tree fall over and split, and it's just this loud cracking, like you feel it in your body kind of sound. That's my whole tone image, okay? John Petrucci's image is him standing on a mountain with a guitar, and every note he plays, there's a bunch of birds flying around him, okay? So you got to come up with a tone image. You'll start with the amp, and then the cab. There are, not on this modeler, I cannot shape the amps, and I cannot shape the cabs, okay? So my hands are pretty tied, right? But I can experiment with different combinations. So the process that we'll do here is we're going to find our amp, we're going to find our cab, and we'll add every effect and delay and reverb and all that later, because a lot of that doesn't necessarily color the tone in quite the same way. So again, I wish my other camera was working so I could show you all the buttons I'm clicking. But first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the pre-effects, I'm going to turn off the delay, and then there's a cab button in here, and then you turn that button. And so I'm going to grab my guitar. Ta-da. And hopefully we don't get too much feedback here. Okay, you guys are getting it, but I don't get it. So let's turn this up. Okay, so this is off. Cab. So we have black 2x10. I'm going to move this over just a smidge. Okay, so we have black 2x10. And to me, that sounds clean. There's not much to it. Just sounds like I plugged in an amp. Okay, tweed 1x8, tweed 4x10. Not much happening for me there. Black, and I know the model I like is a little further back. A lot of times an amp will sound like this until the drive is kind of cranked up a little bit. So I'm going to keep going through. Now we're on AC, get out of here, cable. AC 15. Not hearing much there. AC 30, nothing. It kicks me out, hold on. Cab. And then we've got UK. A lot of times when I see these UK thing, it's a lot of like mid-rangey, heavy kind of stuff. That's just how I think about them. Cool. So I'm not really hearing much out of the cabinets. I'm going to go to V30. This US V30 was the one I really liked. And then I'm just going to start, and I turned on my drive. So there's our tube OD, so if you're doing like a blues thing, you know, that might kind of work for that. And boutique OD. And what I'm looking for is I'm not going to sit here and try to get all of this. I'm not going to try to get all of this information out of a pedal, right? Like the initial sound of a pedal will probably sound pretty close to how it's going to sound when you tweak it, right? Like it's not going to change it from being, you know, a blues driver into some metal crazy thing, right? So let's try this one. Sounds good. Sounds more rock, and it sounds kind of thin to me. Fat distortion. There's too much bass in there for me, and there's not enough high information. So even if I go in, I tweak the treble middle bass, then it's not gonna do that much for me. And I'm just gonna zoom in and show you where I'm at on this unit real quick. So I'm in this drive section, and we're going tube OD, boutique OD, fat distortion, orange, metal, yada, yada, yada. And then depending on, so you go over here and it's a little chart, right? So we go drive/amp, and then the pedals that I can edit will light up. So gain, volume, treble, middle, bass. If I was editing the modulation, I'd get depth and pitch, speed fine, manual, speed 2, resonance, mix, and mode. And the little knobs light up based on what I'm using. So, okay, back to this. Great. So, this cable. Gonna kill me. Hey, I have extra. Okay. There we go. Okay. So, okay. Let's just, let's see what we got. And this thing is a little broken. Drive, please. So here's... That's a good, like, kind of rock sound, but it feels like it lacks a little bit of clarity for me. So I'm going to switch over to orange distortion. This feels punk to me. Let's see, where's it? Come on. So this one feels kind of punk to me. It's not really what I'm looking for. I like my, metal kind of sounds. So let's go back here, try metal distortion. And here you can hear all that bass sound. But the thing is even if I pop back over, and this is one of those things where it's like some amps, some cabs are really extreme in terms of their balance, like in terms of treble, middle, bass, right? And so sometimes you can kind of, fiddle with EQ and kind of save it, but sometimes you can't. So let's see how we can shape this. So there's so much bass in there. So let's turn our bass down. And John Petrucci's method, I remember it's back when he was on like Mark II, there's a video of it. And you just search John Petrucci tone or whatever, and he's like talking about this Mesa Boogie amp, and he's like, yeah, I just roll the middle up until I kind of hear it a little bit. And that's what I do as well. So let's keep playing with this. So too much treble. Let's try rolling a little bass back in, just till we feel it. There we go. Now we're getting a little bit. Cool, so I can kind of bookmark that in my head, or I can say, nope, I love it. Let me write that down somewhere, and then go and record it. Okay, so let's keep playing with these, because I think the one I really like is a little further down. I immediately don't like the shred distortion. It's too rolled off on the high end for me. Fuzz is doing nothing for me. Octafuzz, nothing. It's Octafuzz. So if you like Octafuzz, go for it. And then we're on to cab models. Nothing. That's ripping, but it's not really what I'm looking for. UK 80s. Nothing. UK modern. And again, you can hear all this bass information. And you don't want that in a guitar sound, and you also don't need it. So I liked that metal distortion a lot. So now here's the thing: is you might start with a cab, and then you go to the drive section, at least as far as this unit goes, and then you go, you know what? I really like this metal sound, but there's kind of some features about it that I don't like so much, right? So that's when you can go back to the amp or back to the cab and start playing with these things in a reverse order. So I'm going to go back to my cab section, and I'm just going to go back to the beginning of the cabs. And so now I've got metal distortion on. That's good, but I still have way too much bass. So let's fix my bass here. And see, the thing is when I had this drive and I had the bass setting at this same level of the for the knob, then it was working, or like the bass wasn't too much. And so because of that, or it was present. And so now when I go back to the cabs and I go, oh, I switched the cab and now the bass knob stayed the same, but the cab is taking out all this bass, then I know it's the cab or this other thing, that this other parameter that I'm messing with, that edited or took out what I need. So maybe that one won't work, or maybe I have to go back and forth, right? So let's keep flipping through. So we'll go to Tweed 4x8. Super thin, nothing. I'm going to skip the kind of the ones I like. So AC 15. Pretty good. It's kind of lacking a little bit of fullness for me. Next one, AC 30. That's working pretty well for me. So all you do is you flip through the settings. You're going to find the core of your tone. Do you like AC 30? Do you like the 4x12? Do you like the Tube OD Modern, or whatever it is? So now that I've found these kind of initial settings, now I can start fine-tuning. So I'm going to go back over to that drive section, and let's see what we got here. Okay. Let's see. That does nothing. Okay, great. So let's start with gain. John Petrucci is a pretty low gain player. I like pretty high gain, frankly. So if I'm playing light, I don't get a lot of gain. But if I'm playing harder, I like high gain. So I'm just going to keep kicking this up. And what I'm hearing right there is I'm not hearing enough gain when I'm doing just those downstroke attacks. I'm going to go up a little more. Pretty good. And another really important note when you're doing this, you don't want to have the volume too low or too high, because if the volume is too high, then your ears actually perceive high frequencies differently, and if it's too low, you kind of don't get the effect. So I'm going to keep going up. I'm just going to go ahead and set this. And remember that you guys didn't see it, but I really liked the AC 15 and I like the AC 30 model. So hear how I'm hearing that grit on the front end of the attack with these muted pieces. Sorry, got my foot pedal. That's what I'm looking for, at least as far as my tone. So that's with high gain. Here's the low gain. There's no grit, and here's the grit. 7 something. Oops. No grit. And here's grit. Cool, so we like that. Now, this is our next big step. This is super duper important. We're gonna go over to Logic, hooray. And I'm gonna save this little project. And we're just gonna go new project, okay? Do close this one. I tested this earlier and you guys can hear Logic, which is great. And we're gonna add an audio track. And I'm going to use Logic's tuner real quick, and because the tuner is broken on this little guy. Cool. All right, so now that we're in tune, what we're gonna do is, just gonna check my audio here. Great. Now that we're in tune, you need to play the same thing twice. I don't really have anything worked up at the moment. There's a lot of new stuff I'm working on. So all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna jam a little bit, but you need the same thing twice. And then we're gonna test, do we like the AC30 better or do we like the AC15 better? And a lot of times I like to set this up in like more of a full project. I want to hear it with drums. I want to hear it with bass because it's not just about where, like how it sounds on its own. It's also about how it sounds in the mix. You gotta have both, right? So we're gonna go through that. So turn on record and make sure we have an output assigned because Logic likes to not assign things. And something's not happening still. A is flat. Let's fix that. Oh, let's see what we know. Okay, so that'll be what we play. So all I'm gonna do is gonna hit record. Great. There's recording number 1 at way too quiet of a volume, but that's fine because we can just raise it up. Now all we're going to do is we're going to add another audio track. Ta-da! And then we're going to mute this one, and then we're going to go to those other settings that we like. So cab, we'll go to AC15. Then we hit record. We record again. Great. So now we have what's called A/B testing, an A and a B. Ta-da! Just going to double check that you guys can see this. And we're going to set this up right like this. Cool. Nope, not that far. Just right there. And you're not going to play these at the same time. Can't tell what it says, right? So all you're going to do is play them back. Oh, got to assign an output. That's important. All right, output. Stereo. I'm at PC. I should be able to see Logic. Yeah, it's there. Okay. That thing is just behind. So now we play them and we listen to. Which one do we like better? So that's number 2. And ideally, you would sit here and title these AC15X. and this one's called AC30, right? So you can keep track of all your settings. I'll play this one. Mute. I don't know about you guys, but I immediately like the AC31 better. And I think the one I really like is I like the AC31 a lot better. So we'll stick with that one. And then we can hit save, and then we can start doing the rest of our, what I call tone dialing, right? We can say, you know, okay, well, now that I put it in a mix, do I want more or less, right? One of the things that you're definitely going to want to do is if you have the capability in whatever piece of equipment you're using, then you're going to want to add a roll-off for, you want nothing below 150. 150 for guitar tones, and above, I think it was 10K? Yeah, it was 10K. So you would add this on there, something like that. And so when I flip this on and off, listen to that, all of that kind of information gets taken out because the bass, the kick drum, maybe low keyboards kind of cover that area of the sonosphere. And while it might sound really cool to have all of that extra sonic information, it's not doing you any good, and you just kind of need to get used to the way the guitar like should sound. I mean, I think when I talked with Aaron Intervals at camp, I think he said roll off at like 8K or maybe 6K. Like his was really extreme, but his guitar tone's also really different, right? So now that we've gone through this process on an old unit and I've shown you what that can do, give me 2 seconds because everything's still torn apart. And I'm going to plug my Fractal unit in, and we'll go through tone dialing on there as well, and I'll show you some of the stuff I like there. If you have any questions, the AC30 was louder, you need to match them before you compare them, otherwise you'll prefer the louder one. This is true, so yeah. Let's check levels. And we'll just turn this one up. What we can do is we can just do left and right, because I don't know Logic that well. Sorry. Oh, wait, the mixer panel. Okay, now they're matched in volume. Are you happy, sir? Yes, ideally you need to match them in volume. The thing is the volume difference wasn't that extreme. And we'll play in my... I still like the crunch on that one a lot. And now back to back, you're hearing things that you wouldn't hear if you just played them one by one, which is this one sounds pretty muffled, like there's a big kind of, I don't want to say bump in the mid-range, but... Yeah, look at right here. It's a lot less information in the 2K, 3K, and then we'll just click on this guy, and we'll switch them. Sorry, let me get over to this one. You can see it's a lot more balanced in terms of, and you know, that doesn't really matter, it just matters what it sounds like. But that's how you do that. So give me just a minute, and we're gonna get the Fractal stuff plugged in. So don't need to save that in Logic, because whatever. Okay, I'll be back in 2 seconds. Well, a couple more. Please hang tight while I get this plugged in. Okay. Oops. There we go. Okay. So another thing that's really important with tone dialing is when you're doing it, I have my head rush unit over here which is what's called full range, full response. I have the mid contour on it on 100% of the time, because otherwise it sounds like there's just a whole ton of mid information. So whenever you're tone dialing, you should, you might dial, like I've dialed in on that, and then I'll do my refining on my studio monitors. But the technical ideal way to do it would be to tone dial in on your studio monitors only and record and play it back, and then adjust the sound source that you normally practice out of to play with it a little better. Or you can just make two different, presets, and you can use one for practice, and then you can use another for, playing and recording and stuff like that. Maybe you listen back with your studio monitors whenever you're doing recording, and then when you're practicing, you practice out of something else. Okay, cool. So we're gonna get this plugged in, and I will be right back. We'll just go to, oh boy, it's on the other monitor. Move. Deskus. Thank you. And FM30. Close that and that and that. That can go down. And yeah, we can leave that right there. Good idea looking at the sound spectrum. Yeah, totally. Okay, so let's hope when I plug the Fractal in, it works. We have barely enough cable to make this work. It's kind of silly. I'm going to get this guy unplugged, and I got to swap the other sound source. Give me a second. Give me my cable, please. All right. The things I do for you guys. This YouTube stuff is a lot of work. Okay. This plug in. If you have any questions, now is a fantastic time to post them in the chats. Okay, so looks like our Fractal is disconnected. Why is it disconnected? Let's see. Tools. I don't know why my Fractal's disconnected. I have never connected it on the Mac before, so that might be what's going on. Or I plugged in the complete wrong cable. That's probably it. Give me a minute. Sorry. Yep, it's the wrong cable. All right. Okay, thank you for your patience. So let's talk about a couple things. Let's talk about a couple things with regards to how we set up fractal tones in particular. The first thing is you're going to need an in, and then you're going to need an out at the end, and then your amp block is going to come first, and then your cab block is going to come last. And the reason you want to structure it this way is because on a real amplifier, there's something called the effects loop. So if I put an effect right here, oh, it's got to sync because it's the very first time I plugged into this computer. But if I put an effect in between this in and this amp, right? Like things that you would want to do there are like put a wah pedal, right? Or a gate would be another one that you probably put in front of the amp because it's the very first part of the signal, right? or you could do it after. You could do it in the amp loop because you'd want to affect the amplified signal, not the whatever. So these are called pre-effects, and then these effects, which are chorus and flanger, are what's called in the effects loop. They're between the amp and the cab, and I do all of my effects in the effects loop in this order. Flanger I really don't use a lot. It's just kind of a nice to have. But chorus I'll use, and delay. And the reason the delays, there's two delays for a couple of reasons. Number one is because there might be two different types of delays that I need. There is channel A, B, C, D, right? But I can also just set it up where there's delay A and delay B, and one's long and one's short, right? And you can set that up through channels, but I tend not to mess with channels so much as I do blocks. And then I have the reverb. And the reason I structured it this way, get this plugged in. The reason the delay are after the volume thing, which is a custom external block, is so that you can do swells. This is a very important piece of set that when I originally kind of built my board, I didn't know. So, okay, good. So we're off. So I'm going to demonstrate some swells for you. See how after I let go of the pedal, the sound remains. So that's really important. All right. Okay, so we're at a good level with our fractal. So let's go and make a new tone. Ta-da-da! So we go in. Where's it out? Input. And then you go output. And then we just connect them. Da-da-da. And then we're going to add an amp. And we'll stick the cab right about here. Let's see what we get. We get no sound. Probably because that's on mute. Oh, I love troubleshooting when there's no sound. That's the worst. Oh, this is output 2. Let's make sure we pick output 1. We have no sound. Why do we have no sound? Bypass. Nope. In 1. Am I on in? I'm not on in 2. That's all the way up. So let's start with something that's trash. Okay. Sorry, that's way too loud for you guys. Da-da-da. And that's too quiet. So we'll roll this up. Okay, ta-da. And we're not going to edit this one because I like it. Let's just grab something dumb. I have no idea what parallax is. Look, it doesn't even work. It's trash because I got this unit used. So say preset, clear. Yes. And we'll try restarting this. Hey, it worked. And let's add in our amp block. So here's an example of an amp that just sounds way too buzzy. Like, probably not saving that. Let's try the cab. So that fixed a lot of things. And then you go through the picker, and then look, just like when we were going through that really old AX3000G thing, that's sitting on my desk here, 1 by 12, 2 by 12, 1 by 10, 4 by 10, etc. And then you can just go look up. So like we know that like Nickelback used the rectos, right? So let's try the rectos. So sometimes the sustain equation is part of gain, sometimes it's part of the amp, stuff like that. And then you just start clicking through these kinds of things. So let's try Brit 800. That was kind of one I messed with early on. Not getting a lot out of there. And then all these have different volumes in the axe. So I need to bring this up a lot. By the way, gain is not volume, so don't mix that up. Too hot. Try to bring that down. So it's the same deal, whether you're going through the fractal stuff, you know, you're going to pick an amp, you're going to pick a cab, you'll go through it and, you know, and then you'll record some A's and B's and then you'll put them playing back and forth and you'll see which one you like better. That's really my whole process for tone dialing. And then, actually, let's go back to the fractal real quick because let me pop back to my preset. So right now, because I just practice a lot. This is my solo tone, and then this is my crunch tone. And then my solo tone. And so the solo tone's a lot softer and everything, while the crunch tone, you know, it really helps facilitate all that low end. So those are two tones I definitely build in. And then the thing I want to point out here is the, you want to roll off everything below 150 and everything above 10. So I'll show you, I'll just A-B this a little bit real quick. So here's without the graphic EQ, eliminating those. And on. And the thing is, when I first turned that on, I was like, ugh, this sounds really weird and thin, and I don't like it. And then when I put it like in my mixes and I just practiced with it for a while, I was like, oh wow, like yeah, actually my guitar sounds like way better because I'm just letting the bass fill out all that extra info. And actually, I'll just show you guys that Logic session that I was working on because I have this latest tone in there. So this is Italian prog because I've been listening to a lot of Italian prog players. We'll cut that off. Oh, cool. Superior Drummer is going to take its time to load. Thanks. And I didn't double track the guitars yet because I'm learning Logic, but let's just listen to guitars alone. And then let's listen to guitars with bass. And guitar, bass, drums. And I'm just letting, you know, kick drum and that thing fill out all the rest, and then keyboards are up pretty high. So that is tone dialing, and let me know if you have any questions. We'll hang out for just a minute. I'll have some sips of water, because I installed a reverse osmosis filter, and then you have to sterilize it, and that takes 24 hours. So it's been like not 3 days without water. Don't take it that way. It's been 3 days of buying bottled water, and how much of this do I need? I don't want to stock a bunch of it. So I hope that helped with the tone dialing stuff. And we are working on some videos. I've got some players lined up to do case studies with the practicing method, which is really exciting. Basically, the way I'm going to structure that is I'm going to teach the players the practicing method. I'm going to help them pick what to practice. I'm not going to pick something that's super easy for them, but I'm also not going to pick something that's like wildly out of their skill level that they wouldn't choose to work on in the first place, right? It has to be fair in that sense. And then I'm going to run with them for like 5 to 7 days, and I'm going to have them record, they're going to record a like performance video at the end of each practice session. And so we'll kind of get a sense of like how quickly they can improve on something. And I hope that's enough for you guys in terms of proving the efficacy of the practicing thing. If you haven't watched the practicing video, I already outlined a lot of it. I think it was maybe a little stretched, a little confusing, but all of the base information is there. And a lot of people have really enjoyed that live. I think I did it like 2 or 3 weeks ago, so definitely check that one out. And then we got next week, we're doing speed picking. So, and that's kind of the next video that I'm going to be doing as well. I've been sick for a couple days, and I'm better now. But not being able to practice the speed stuff every day, that really, I mean, way more than sweeps, you need to be able to practice the speed stuff every day. And the challenge with it is that you need to be kind of warmed up for it. You can't, at least in my opinion, I don't think it's a good idea to just jump right in. So with all that said, I'm not seeing any questions, so leave me comments in my YouTube videos, all those good stuff. And see you guys next week. And I'll probably be working on a video this weekend, so that'll come out on Friday. So that's what we're shooting for.